What's up, Magical Misfits? Drew here. And to be perfectly honest, this week I don't really have the wherewithal to give anything. I didn't last week either, which is why I posted the video I did. I mean, I had already intended to do this sort of a day in the life of this witch series, and I've got some ideas of things I want to film. And I already had footage of me doing some of my spring planting. I had wanted that video to go differently than it did, but I just didn't have it in me to make a video last week at all. Not even to sit here and do this. So first off, life is good. Life is always good. But it's a little bit hard right now. For any of you whom have watched my channel for any length of time, you will be aware that I am essentially estranged from my father. We have a terrible relationship. I even 2 years ago did this little triad of spells. I won't say against him, but in order to protect myself from him on my channel. I did basically the hot foot jar. I did have some basic information about what that was from being out on the internet, but I just kind of went with my gut with what I needed to do in the premise of I need this person to get out of my life. And then I took that jar and I buried it in his neighborhood at a crossroads in the neighborhood. I made my swamp jar, again, pretty intuitive. I don't know if that's a thing, but it's a thing in my practice now. I have a friend who is a swamp witch, and she actually brought me swamp water from 2 different swamps in the area she's from. And essentially, along with the other ingredients for that, I buried it at the front edge of my property. And it's basically just so that when my father comes onto my property, he feels very energetically uncomfortable and unwelcome. And then I made an invisibility candle, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. So, don't see me, I don't exist, forget about me. I did a 4th working with my husband later. It's a narcissist spell because I do believe that my father is a narcissist. For example, he does not see me as my husband's wife or my children's mother. I am his daughter. And I mean that like I belong to him. And, we might get into that a bit more later. But yeah, we did a narcissist spell together and I didn't record it for the channel. I probably just it didn't occur to me, I'm sure, because I was doing it with my husband. Not that he would mind, but we don't do a lot of workings together. They have to, of course, be something that, we'll do workings for the business together. We'll do protection for the home or something for the kids or this situation together because we're both affected by it, maybe. I don't know. But the bulk of our practice is separate. For those who don't know, my husband is also a pagan and practicing witch. After doing those spells, everything was good. And it was about this time, it was spring, about 2 years ago, because I was 40 and I'm 42 now. There was an event that led to that. I just felt like it was the straw that broke the camel's back. So I decided I wanted to essentially cut ties, at least from my side. I can't stop him from showing up on my doorstep when he shows up on my doorstep. But that after that point was like twice a year he would show up for like 10 to 15 minutes and then leave. And I was okay with that. When I have to be in my father's presence, I get anxious. I don't have anxiety at all, but my whole body tenses up. I get a tight knot in my stomach and I'm just waiting for the bomb to drop because that's what happens. Often with my father, I will think something's going to upset him and make him angry and it doesn't. And then something that you wouldn't think would upset him or make him angry sets him off and he's screaming, yelling, and being nasty. At any rate, he had put myself and my family in a position that could have had legal ramifications. We could have gotten into trouble through no fault of our own for a situation that he put us in. And I told him about himself and I was just done. So like I said, the past 2 years have been pretty good. A little backstory to get us to where we're going to be. My mother died June 30th, 2011. She was diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer, but she died basically of diabetic shock within a few days because she refused to eat and I didn't force her to do so. They were going to come put a tube in. It would have been 2 days after her death because she died on a Saturday and they were going to put it in on Monday. At any rate, she didn't want to be alive, so I didn't force her to do anything she didn't want to do. I let her have her death the way she wanted it. At any rate, not an exaggeration that almost exactly a year to the day later, it was the week of the 30th of June, 2012, my father was diagnosed with bladder cancer. They operated and they did a treatment. I can't remember what it's called. It's not chemo or radiation, but he went into remission and he was fine. Apparently, I hadn't spoken to him in 6 or 8 months before, like 2 weeks back now. Apparently in December, it came back. The cancer came back and they operated again earlier this year. And then he had his first round of chemotherapy. I said chemotherapy. Not this past Friday, but the Friday before that. I didn't know anything. This is all information that I've gotten in hindsight after the fact. Tuesday evening, I got a call and he sounded like he was dying. So I went over to the house and I at least got the fact that the cancer came back. He had chemo and, he was really sick. So I decided, okay, I'll come by twice a day and check on you and make sure you have what you need and see how you're doing. So the next morning I came at 10, Wednesday, 2 weeks back now, to check on him and give him his meds and whatever. Well, did my best to give him what he needed and whatever. And he was really suffering. And I had to step back and just look at him like a human being in order to have the appropriate compassion and to be able to manage the situation from that place. I'd have compassion for him anyway, because again, he's a human being. But to say I don't like him is an understatement. I don't, at any rate. So, it's even as much as like brush my hair, rub my head, rub my back, like, I don't know if I can express to you how hard that is for me to do for this individual. He was extremely mentally and emotionally abusive toward my mother until the day she died. Well, I'm sorry, the day she went into the hospital. She was in there for a week, diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer, and then died a few days later. So maybe a 2-week period of my entire life that he wasn't abusive toward my mother, abusive toward my brother who died when I was 19, and abusive toward me. He's abusive toward anybody who gets close to him. I'll get into that again later, probably too. So I'm doing my best just to look at him like a human being rather than my father. Come back in the evening with my husband at 5 and do it all over again. And when I left, I just really felt he was in a bad way. So I contacted a friend of mine who's a nurse and asked for her opinion. And hearing how he was and what was going on, she said she didn't think it sounded right and he should go to the emergency room. So we had dinner, we went back to his house, and I told him, this is what my friend who's a nurse said. He said he didn't want to go to the emergency room, which is I thought that was more likely going to be the response. Wanted me to call his doctor. It's 8 o'clock at night at this point. Trying to call the doctor and a nurse from the doctor's office on their cell phones. They're not answering, understandably, and to an extent, I guess. But I'm like, the only thing I can do is try this again tomorrow. I will just keep calling people until they answer and talk to me. So went home. That night I'm sleeping, 1 o'clock in the morning, Thursday, 1 a.m. Thursday. I get a call and I can't really understand him, but I finally figure out that he wants to go to the emergency room. We go to his house, we call an ambulance, they come and get him. We live in a world of COVID, so we could not go into the hospital. He can't have visitors, that kind of thing. But, they admitted him. I'm getting everything I need over the phone, whatever. He was in AFib, which means his heart was not beating properly. It's not even that the heartbeat is irregular. It's that the top 2 chambers of his heart weren't beating. You have 4 chambers, 2 of them weren't working. They were just quivering. They gave him meds for that, got him stabilized. He went back into AFib again later, just from going to the bathroom, getting up and walking to the bathroom. Has thrush in his mouth. He's back out of the AFib. They're treating everything that's going on with him, keeping him pumped full of fluids or whatever. Monday this week was the first day that he was anything like his normal self. So he calls me and he has legal situations happening. Things that need to be handled that he can't handle because he's in the hospital and is going to be there for a little while. Anyway, he very quickly into the conversation, he ends up yelling at me, which is normal, and just being nasty, insulting my intelligence, not coming right out and saying you're an idiot, but, do you understand? Yes. Do you understand? I understand English. This is... So I go and I do the things that he needs me to do, but I'm so over it. He has 6 sisters and a brother. I couldn't get a hold of his brother. I got a hold of 5 of his sisters live in the Midwest. I live on the East Coast. We live on the East Coast. I called them. I messaged one of them, and I'm keeping her in the loop, and she's keeping the rest in the loop. They don't talk to him. They don't talk to their brother. He has one of his sisters who lives here, and they have a closer relationship. But even her, I'm talking to her this past Saturday before he even kicked off at me, and she said, I can only handle your father for 15 minutes at a time, which is a new development, because when my mother died, I tried to explain to her and one of her sons who also lives here, my cousin, his behavior. I tried to tell them who he is, and they couldn't fathom what I was saying, but they get it now. And actually, they haven't really talked to him for the past 2 years either. Hardly. He'll show up on my aunt's doorstep and talk to her for a bit or whatever, but my cousin used to regularly go visit my dad and hang out with him, and he doesn't do that. Hasn't done that in 2 years, because my dad started treating him the same way he treats anybody who's close to him. I'm kind of prepping myself, because he's supposed to have another round of chemo, even though the cancer specialist at the hospital has suggested to him that he go with a milder treatment from now on. I don't know what he's going to do, but I'm kind of prepping myself to have to tell him that I don't want to be involved. Fortunately, his nurse that's taking care of him was very understanding as well, because she was like, do you want to talk to him? This again was before he called me, but I was like, no. I was like, we really don't have a good relationship. I said, I want him to be okay, but no, it's not good. And she was like, I totally understand. I have the same relationship with my parents. And I'm like, thank you. Everybody is so understanding and supportive of me right now. I was sitting at the table this past weekend, I think it was Saturday, and I was trying to soothe myself. I was stripping some dried rosemary, and the fragrance and the action of the sort of repetitive action of doing it, all of this was very soothing. But I had this weird flash in my brain, kind of like your life flashing before your eyes, but all of these very significant, formative, important memories of my father flashed through my brain, and they were all the same, in that in those memories, he was literally forcing me to do things I did not want to do against my will, or forcing me to do things I wanted to do in a way I didn't want to do them, the way he wanted me to do them. And I'd never really thought about I have lots of ways I've thought about him in our relationship, but like that sort of cemented the theme of the relationship has been literally since I can remember to today, him forcing me to do things I don't want to do. He hasn't always been able to do it. Sometimes I've been able to get out of it somehow or another. My husband has been lovely since, we've been together for 18 years. He's helped me a lot in these 18 years to avoid being forced to do things I don't want to do by my father. But he still finds a way somehow sometimes. My father thinks that I am a very hysterical, reactive person. Nobody else that knows me sees me that way at all. I don't have anxiety. I don't get anxious usually. I don't worry. I might have a moment or even a day, like when the hurricane came through, Hurricane Florence, ripped my house apart. I made a video taking you through that experience, and I showed you one of my bad days. But I only had a few bad days. 1 or 2, 3, maybe, during the whole process. We're still not fully fixed from the hurricane yet. This was 2 years ago. This fall will make 2 years, and we still haven't finished with the floors yet. The rest of the house is good, thankfully, but it took a long time. It's taken time, But I only had a very brief blips. If something bad happens, I deal with it. I feel that, I am in it in that moment, and then I'm over it and it's done. I'm usually very good at that. I'm not a hysterical, reactive, person, but that's what he does to me. Again, it's a visceral reaction when I have to be in his presence. I'm shaky. Every muscle is tense. My stomach is tense. I have fear of this person, for one. And it's just awful. I don't want to deal with you or be around you. And so I'm kind of in a mild state of this whole time, because I'm having to deal with all this. The amazing thing about all of this is, as many of you will know, I work with Osset. I worship Osset. And the week before this happened, I have a daily practice. It is basically the same thing every single day. Part of that daily practice, once a week, I sit down and I draw cards from this Alana Fairchild's Isis deck. And I have two questions. One is, what do I need to know for the coming 7 days, this coming week? And what do I need to work on? And I will intuitively draw as many cards as I need to. And I do so by laying the cards out 7 at a time and running my hand over them. And usually my eyes are closed and I'm getting it in sensations in my body that tell me that that's the card. That's how I choose. So, I could end up with 2 cards. I could end up with 10 cards, however many cards. The cards of what I need to know for the following week, I look at immediately. I read through them and get the message for that week. But the cards that I need to work on, I leave that. And starting the next day after I've drawn them, depending on how many cards, it could be 1 each day, it could be 2 each day, I work on the cards. I read the cards, I ingest the message. She has little exercises that you can do with them. Sometimes I do those. Sometimes I find something online. This past week, every day leading up, I was just drawn to find meditations, guided meditations online that went with the card. And basically the gist of it was I was working on my masculine and feminine sides. And it's this sort of as above, so below kind of deal where you're working on yourself, and as an extension, you are also healing the collective, the divine masculine. And there was a lot to it. There was a lot of tears associated with cards and whatnot. There has been. It was just a lot of very powerful, deep work that was happening in the days leading up to all of this. And it all stemmed back. The first meditation that I did, the woman who was doing the guided meditation spoke words as to what the divine, the damaged divine feminine and damaged divine masculine might look like. And I don't mean physically, I mean like the character traits that they might have. And as she was doing so, I saw my parents. Now, it did not look anything like my parents do or did in this lifetime. They were these weird sort of caricatures of that damaged masculine and feminine. So my mother was like this tiny little shriveled up thing, and she was hiding under her arms. And my father was kind of like Popeye. He had this big, exaggerated, puffed up chest, and his face was very red. And it dawned on me that what I needed to start working on for this was the damage that had been written on me, given to me by my mother and father, and then move into what I got on my own outside in real life, And this caricature of them came back to me in another meditation for another card that was seemingly unrelated. And I continued to do work. And a third one, it was to deal with Kundalini, which of course is this energy within you, masculine and feminine, coming together as they should up your spine, blah, blah, blah. But it all was very much centered and related around this healing of this masculine and feminine, which the very first damage shown to me, given to me, written on me for these, of course, was my mother and father. There was just a lot of deep, powerful work that was happening in the days leading up to it. And I absolutely know now that she was preparing me for what was to come. She was doing her best to prepare me and to look out for me. And I have been leaning on her heavily. One of the cards I got was about getting in touch with Sekhmet and having courage and strength. And I mean, I did a whole, again, exercise to go along with that. And there was just a lot that she was giving me to prepare for what was coming. And as I said, I am leaning on her very heavily right now to try to make it through. I know that I have given you probably more personal information about me than you ever care to know. It's all tied together. It's all... and I just don't have it in me to discuss anything else right now. I just really don't. I was able to do my starting out solitary videos because I'm given a prompt and I can talk about the prompt. But I don't have a lot right now. I'm using everything at my disposal to just be okay and to be strong and to be, to take care of myself and to try to navigate this situation in a way that I feel like I've done everything that I need to do in order to feel good. So I have done what I can for my dad so that I don't feel like a bad person. But I am not extending myself to the point where he's abusing me and using me and so on and so forth. And it's just really, I don't know that space yet, because with me, it's just always been him abusing me and using me or nothing at all. That's just the easiest way to handle the situation. So it's new and I'm navigating it and trying to figure it out. I've got to find a way to find a resolution of some sort in the healthiest way possible for me, at least. Anyway, again, sorry for the dump of personal information, but this is where I am, and this is what I have. Like I said, life is good. My life is good. It's just really hard right now. Okay, so here I am with a quick update. This video is already long enough. I don't want to take much more of your time. Sorry if the sound is weird. I don't have my mic right now. Also, I will try to remember to leave links to all the videos that I mentioned earlier in the video. So basically, a lot has happened. I filmed the first part of this video Tuesday. Today is Thursday, and Wednesday, yesterday, I got a call from, I'm not using familial terms for him anymore, but I won't say his name. So the person this video is about called me and immediately began to insult my intelligence and be very nasty to me when he was trying to ask me. Well, no, he doesn't ask. He was telling me the things I needed to do for his discharge, the things that he needed. And I just said to him that he couldn't speak to me that way. And I told him not to talk to me. I cussed at him. I said, don't talk to me like I'm an effing moron. And, you know, you are asking something of me right now. You cannot talk to me this way. And he said, you know, don't worry about it. I'll handle it myself. Have a great day. And hung up on me for, you know, the second time. And that's just what I did. I'm done. For me to just simply tell you that you cannot treat me poorly, you cannot talk to me like that, and that like, he can't handle it. He can't handle that. So I'm done. There is a friend of the family who went and picked him up, and they're kind of keeping in touch with me about him, but I told them I'm done. I'm done. I am estranged from you. I'm done with you because you can't talk to him. Everything is your fault. He told me I misunderstood him after the first phone call. Anyway, anytime there's a situation, it's that he is never to fault. He is never to blame. A month after my mother's death, he proceeded to tell me exactly how everything that ever went wrong in their marriage was her fault and other horrible things. He has no accountability. He cannot see himself in his own actions. And I don't let people treat me the way he has treated me. And all I did, thank you again to Osset, the card that I had for that day, for yesterday, I did a meditation that I felt related to it about standing in your power. And during the meditation, I saw this amulet, and I was actually sculpting the amulet out of air dry clay in my studio when he called. And I stood firmly in my power, and he couldn't handle it. And yeah, so basically I'm done. I'm going to be okay because I had another huge breakthrough this morning in the early hours of the morning with regards to my mother as a result of this. Something that I always knew, but seeing an aspect of her and a part of our relationship in a new light and understanding it from another perspective, a higher, much more beautiful perspective. Basically, my mother always protected me my whole life from him until she died. And then things got worse. Not that there were there were definitely bad things that she couldn't protect me from. There was stuff, but she took the brunt of his abuse. And anyway, there's more healing to be done there with my mother and that relationship. And I realized it as a result of finally coming to terms, letting go, basically letting go, no longer trying to justify his actions and behaviors, or to ignore them or minimize them, just really looking and saying this is not okay, and having a firm boundary for the first time in my whole life with him. It's actually been a hugely healing already, and a very big breakthrough in my own health and development. He is not my responsibility. I have let him go, and I can only see it getting better from here. So, okay, once again, thanks so much for watching. I know this is long, but this is where I am. I'm meeting you from where I am. Thank you so much. And until next time, much love and gratitude.